Hello and welcome to Africa Speaks. Glad you're watching. And once again, we focus on the South Sudan humanitarian crisis. And we will be speaking to Dr. Riek Machar, South Sudan's former vice president. But first, let's take a look at the recent cholera outbreak in the conflict-bedeviled country. Patients lie here receiving treatment for cholera and are among over 1,000 infected cases reported in South Sudan's capital, Juba. The very first cases of cholera were reported last month and have now led to 27 deaths.
Though the surveillance effort is ongoing, and however, there are some cases some suspected cases reported in Kaka, Upper Nile, and UNICEF and the Minister of Health team have been in Kaka and Melo the last few days.
Juba is the most affected, but the disease that is fatal is spreading fast to Jonglei and Upper Nile states. There is now a wave of panic among the hundreds of thousands who sought refuge at UN bases, which could send the entire country into a health crisis.
13 of them have died inside the hospital, and 9 of them have died in the community, so we have 23.
So far, UNICEF has spent its own resource of $1.7 million to respond to the current outbreak of the disease. We urgently need an additional $10 million to continue our cholera response operation and to increase our cholera prevention.
South Sudan is experiencing a peak of heavy rains hampering aid efforts to reach other affected areas said to have cholera outbreak. Cholera is often fatal, usually transmitted through drinking water or eating contaminated food with fecal waste or dirty hands, causing severe diarrhea, dehydration that leads to loss of fluid. Well, there is a very big humanitarian crisis in South Sudan, and now the latest being the cholera outbreak. And of course, we've seen over 1.5 million people fleeing the country to neighboring countries, and over 20,000 people have been reported dead since the conflict started off in December 2013. And delegates of the two warring South Sudan parties are in Ethiopia, among them 150 representatives, including government and opposition delegates, political parties, faith-based groups, civil society and traditional leaders, with the aim of initiating an inclusive mediation process based on multi-party dialogue peace talks between South Sudan's government and the rebel movement that had been scheduled to resume on the 2nd of June, but have now been moved or adjourned to a yet unspecified date, and we're yet to get to find out why this was moved. Now, official explanation has been given for the delay in the resumption of the talks. Some observers with direct knowledge of the talks said that the decision was taken to allow time to assess the outcome of the multi-party symposium. Meanwhile, diplomatic sources say that the delay was necessitated by the need to conduct further consultation among the heads of state of the IGAD member countries before resumption of direct face-to-face talks between the rival groups resumed. Now, talks have stalled on several occasions amid ongoing disagreement between the South Sudanese government and breakaway rebels. Both the president and the rebel leader are due to meet again on the 9th of June to engage in substantive discussions constituted by the mediation process. Just where is the problem is a question we are asking. And on his visit to Kenya, I spoke to Dr. Riek Machar on the South Sudan crisis and also progress on the peace talks that was last week. Well, let's take a look at some of the insights he did give on the South Sudan conflict, the crisis, and also the peace talks.
As you know, Kenya is part of the mediation which is taking place in Addis. And as you know, I came on the 8th, went to Addis Ababa, signed a roadmap with President Salva Kiir under the mediation of the Prime Minister of Ethiopia. After that, I felt it would be good if the IGAD leaders who are mediating and those who always sit in the summit give me an opportunity to say the version, the story I know of what happened in Juba. So I came to discuss with the president and the government, and I had useful time since I arrived here. We had useful discussions. Yesterday we concluded them in a joint press conference. So that's what brought me here. I was vilified, despite the fact that I am the victim. President Salva Kiir said I made a coup, when the reverse is true.
So
he made a coup against his comrades, arrested some, and I flee. I was on the run, and while I was on the run, he carried out, administered a genocide, killing one ethnic group. Salva Kiir made a coup against the SPLM on the 23rd of July, 2013. We had been engaged in serious debates. I had raised issues on corruption, which was happening, being rampant in the government, insecurity, which was also engulfing the country, and tribalism, which was being institutionalized in the government, and lack of development. And the fifth issue was our relations were deteriorating very fast with some of our neighbors and even the international community that helped us get independent. And we also had problems within the SPLM as a party. Our own members were saying the SPLM has lost vision. So I raised these 6 issues, and we have debated them through. When he felt I was pressing for resolution of these issues, he suddenly dissolved the whole government, sacked me as vice president. I didn't complain. I told the public I have accepted the decision made by the president, despite the fact that I was his running mate in the elections of 2010. But if he felt he wanted to finish his term up to 2015 with a new team, since we are in one party, there was no reason why we would resist it. So we didn't resist it, we accepted his decision. We, on the cessation of hostilities, we kept our word. It's the opposite. And the UN, UNMISS, and the verification team in Bantu, I think you must be referring to Bantu. It's the government forces that attacked us in the twin city of Rupkone and Bantu, with the verification by the UNMISS. It's also the government forces that came to Mathiang, a county headquarters in eastern Upper Nile. It's also the government forces that came to Nasser at that time, after we signed the roadmap agreement, which recommitted us to respect it. So it wasn't me. On the signature of the roadmap agreement, I have not complained. I haven't complained. We accept it because it readdresses itself to cessation of hostilities. It addresses itself to access of humanitarian services, which we accept without any condition. It addresses itself to the constitution, to the substantive issues. You see, the substantive issues for the peace talks itself. it addresses itself to formation of a transitional government as a product of the peace agreement. So I signed, although knowing that it is a compromise paper. We signed and accepted it. And if I go back to the cessation of hostilities, you know, we signed that agreement on the 23rd January 2014. Up to now, the Ugandan forces have not withdrawn.
Exactly.
In 2006, I was not president. Salva Kiir was the president. Foreign issues are under the desk of the president. When we signed the Navache agreement, comprehensive peace agreement, LRA rebels were operating in South Sudan. We had three options. One was to fight the LRA and push them out of our country. Two, ask them to leave the country peacefully. Three, mediate between the LRA and the Ugandan government. As a government, we chose to mediate. So from July 2006, and actually it started a little bit earlier, the contacts. From November 2005, we initiated contacts. July 2006, I think on the 16th of July, we launched the mediation. For 2 years, Kony, in May 2008, after a complete agreement was worked out, final agreement was worked out, Kony did not sign the peace agreement. Then in December 14th, 2008, the Ugandan forces went on operation with the knowledge of the president. Maybe I was the one surprised, because I was not told. I was still trying to find whether Kony could be persuaded to sign the agreement. In any case, an operation was launched by Uganda in DRC, in South Sudan, in Central Africa, to get rid of Kony. After that, the AU met in Addis Ababa and composed a regional task force. The regional task force was composed of Ugandan forces, DRC, Central African Republic, and we in South Sudan. The headquarters is in Anzara in Western Equatoria. That is a regional task force. It's not me who brought the Ugandan forces to South Sudan. It was a decision in Addis which I did not participate in. It's him who participated in it. Right. So I didn't bring the Ugandan forces. Yes, I want them out. They're fighting. These forces, actually, more forces came as of December 13, 2013. And the conflict in South Sudan, in Juba, started on the 15th. Actually, it tells you there was a conspiracy, a plot done by President Salva Kiir and President Museveni to cause the incident of the 15th December, which now has wrecked the country. The country is split, its army is split, its organized forces are split, the ruling party is split, the self-administered a genocide in Juba. So why would I bring forces to come and fight me? What logical, and by the way, I was also out of power. Why would I bring such forces to come to South Sudan? Well, first of all, I regret that my country, which was aspiring for development, is in this chaotic situation. People are in the national capital. People are refugees in the UN camps. There are 2 camps. In other cities, there are also people who had sought the refuge there. One regrets that very much, you see. But I was the victim. I was the victim. I was on the run for a long time. I was being pursued on alleged false report that I made a coup. Even my comrades who were arrested, and I fought hard that they should be released. Some were tried. The case collapsed in Juba because the government could not substantiate any coup attempt. All in all, in this one would regret, because if this situation did not occur, our people wouldn't be refugees. Well, I came to Nairobi to express my viewpoint on how peace can be reached. I'm happy that the president and the government listen, and through the statements made by the president yesterday, I think he has given impetus to the peace process, and hopefully President Salva Kiir reciprocates, and by the 9th of June we meet again, maybe to sign another document that can push the peace process forward. Oh, sure, yes. As long as there is an agenda that we will discuss and that will push the peace process forward. We have been fighting for exercise of right of self-determination for a very long time. We forsake everything. We forsook development, prosperity, in pursuit for freedom and independence. We achieved it 2011. Now the struggle is how to agree on system of governance that will accommodate the diversity of our people. We now have proposed that a federal system which will restructure the state will accommodate our diversity, and then we would be politically stable and prosper with the potential we have. It depends on under what system. Under the current system, no, I wouldn't be a participant. But under a restructured South Sudan, after a peace agreement and an interim body, interim government is formed, then there would be a reason for why we would be in government. But under the current situation now, we need a peace agreement which will be basis for governance and lawmaking in the country. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome back. Now, of course, we are asking you, are the peace talks in Addis Ababa yielding results for South Sudan? Knowing that we're having a huge crisis in the world's youngest nation, I would like to hear from you as well. You can use the hashtag South Sudan Crisis, and also you can tweet me at Doreen Biira. Now, if you've listened to what Dr. Riek Machar was saying, he seems to blame all of what's going on in South Sudan on this, the government of Salva Kiir, and that is where most of the problems are. They seem to be slowed down peace talks just because the two warring sides are not agreeing to anything. So we'd like to hear from you. Are the peace talks yielding results? Tweet us under the hashtag South Sudan Crisis, or you can tweet me at Doreen Biira. And also, the South Sudan government has reacted. The South Sudan representatives in Kenya have reacted to Salva Kiir's accusations towards President Salva Kiir. Let's take a look at some of them.
Riek Machar does not have any objective other than to be the president of the Republic of South Sudan. And he has no any other reason to give other than that. He had been the vice president. If it is because of his removal from the position of the vice president, that is a constitutional right of the president. In South Sudan, we have no running mate. We don't know why did they rebel. And when we asked them, we did not get a satisfactory answer. I say it is not a satisfactory answer because the issues which they raised are issues which are known to the government. And before they could rebel, the government was in the process of addressing all those issues. Issue number one is the question of corruption. Issue number two is the reorganization of the regular forces. Number three is the reorganization of the system of governance, plus reorganization of the party.
Well, that is the South Sudan government reacting to Riek Machar's remarks and accusations towards President Salva Kiir. Let's take a look at some of your responses coming through Facebook and Twitter. On Facebook, Zab Oyu is saying, may peace first find a place in his heart and subsequently extend to the entire South Sudan. Then there will be a total ceasefire. And we're also seeing Charles Iwani, who is saying, South Sudanese are generally in a crisis, and if that is not dealt with, it could turn into a catastrophe. And well, we're having Whisper Lackdog, who is saying, at this point in time, the two sides have no choice but to resolve their differences, else more people are going to die. And we have SVETS M1, who is saying, interesting perspective from Riek Machar, power sharing only under a restructured system. And Sir Ram G. Davis is saying, I pray that the crisis ends in South Sudan. And we also have one coming in from Michael Chowry, who is saying, in South Sudan, the only way to resolve problems is through war. Well, we'd like to hear from you as well and see what you have to say in this regard. And Joseph Kamau is saying, with all this blame game, I don't think so. What is needed is for people to take responsibility, that is under the hashtag South Sudan Crisis. And we also have another here. Well, Joseph Kamau again is saying, from what I'm hearing from Riek Machar is that it was all an inside job and the rebels had nothing to do with it. Wycliffe Omwasu is saying, Dr. Riek Machar, it is not time for the blame game. You recognize President Salva Kiir, so stop the pride and go build South Sudan. And well, we also have one coming in from Abel Momani, who is saying, Riek Machar needs to understand that there's definitely no way out in this. Peace is the only thing that people in South Sudan need. And let's take a look at more reactions coming in through Facebook and see what you have to say. You can also tweet us as well under the hashtag South Sudan Crisis. Brian Otieno Gembo is saying, I agree with Machar's case, but let him take it slow. Kiir is a dictator. Well, we continue to have your views under the hashtag South Sudan Crisis and also at KTN Africa Speaks at Joy Doreen Biira. This conversation continues online. Let's meet again next Saturday, where we'll be discussing the Nigerian crisis as well. As you all know, over 200 girls were kidnapped in the month of April. And since then, they've not been found. And Boko Haram continues to slaughter people in the northern part of Nigeria. So we'll be tackling the Nigerian crisis too and see what the resolution is for terror in that part of Africa. My name is Joy Doreen Biira. God bless.